Hello, and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. We are part of Rotary International with 1.2 million members and 36,000 clubs around the world. Each week, we connect with and hear from a fascinating and inspirational speakers, often with a message focused on our interests in innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. As a Rotary Club, we always look for ways the programs might foster new approaches to improving communities near and far. And this week, I want to hand it over to our chair, Rushton, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you very much, Nick. It is exciting for us to bring back Ben Schumaker to the Rotary Club of Silicon Valley. He has a very impressive program that I learned about some years ago as part of a work I'm doing at a school up in San Mateo, the Junipero Serra High School. And I was so moved by the story of this project that I said, I just got to get in touch with this guy. And I am excited for him to tell you the story of the Memory Project. And so rather than lay some of that out ahead of time, I think I will just hand it straight over to Ben. Ben, it is so good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Rushton. I really appreciate it. It's great. It's great to be back after 6 years, and I'll just jump into my slides. This first one is actually, I didn't intend for this, but it became a little bit of a game with my daughter because after I made this collage, I realized that I had accidentally put two identical portraits in here. So I'll give you about 5-10 seconds, see if you can spot the two portraits that are the same. And then I'll start giving you a hint soon. They're down in the third row, and there's the boy with the black hair and the blue shirt and the big smile. He's from El Salvador, and he somehow he got double action in there. So this is the story of the Memory Project and how it started in Guatemala in the year 2003. I had just finished undergrad at the time, and I was going to volunteer at an orphanage there. And this was actually a really unique orphanage because it was in a very remote area and only accessible by boat. So when you arrive at the dock, it was very common to see the kids swimming in the river because it was so hot there. So, that was a no-brainer for them to beat the heat and have some fun. I had my old film camera, and I was taking a lot of photos of the kids, every day. And one day, a Guatemalan man said to me, hey, when you go home, you should really have copies of those photos printed, and you should send them here for the kids, because he said, I grew up in an orphanage here. I've never even seen a photo of myself as a child, and I don't have any keepsakes at all to, help me remember my childhood like that. So I was very touched by that and actually struck because as a general volunteer there, I was just focused on the kids' basic needs. And this guy was talking about a totally different kind of need, a psychological or emotional need, for the kids to know that their life stories mattered and that someone was thinking about capturing their life story and helping them develop that sense of personal identity. So I thought, I can print copies of photos, but I've also loved doing portraits for people. And in high school art class, I really enjoyed doing a couple portraits for friends. I did a pretty bad portrait of me and my high school girlfriend, but it won me a couple points anyway. But nevertheless, I knew that staring into a photo of someone's face for, up to 10 hours and really studying their eyes and their smile and capturing every detail in order to make this handmade gift for them was really a powerful way to connect with someone on a human to human level. I would almost call it a meditation. And I think to do a portrait, you really are meditating on someone and spending all of that time thinking outside of yourself and thinking about them as the subject. So I thought, what would be really cool is if we could have high school art students receive photos of kids who are living in difficult situations around the world and do that meditation, really put their artistic effort into creating a handmade, heartfelt gift just for that child. And an additional benefit of this would be that the the children and teens on both sides would perhaps feel a deep human to human connection, despite the fact that they live in different countries and different cultures. And maybe this could be a powerful educational experience, and just in terms of helping youth become global thinkers and practicing kindness for others around the world who they don't even know. So it was a very simple idea, really, and it's basically just what I've been doing for the past 18 years. I just started contacting high school art teachers and sending them photos of children who'd like to have their portraits created, and then their students create the portraits, and we deliver them to the kids as gifts. As you can see, there's so many talented students, and even after doing this for 18 years, I still love to receive artwork every month and just admire the incredible talent of the high school students we have throughout our country, and appreciate the importance of the arts in schools. None more talented than this young man. He's been in my presentations ever since 2006, and I keep him in here as a way to honor him. He was artistically just a genius, and he created this beautiful portrait for this girl in Sierra Leone. And tragically, he died shortly after creating this portrait. But he left her with this gift that I'm sure she still has now, even though she's a young woman. Here's just a few other examples of high school students receiving a photo of a child. The boy whose photo she's holding is from Thailand. This student is from New Hampshire. Her teacher sent me a series of photos. Here is the boy receiving the portrait she made for him. And another one. These portraits actually were part of an exhibit at the State Department headquarters in DC in 2010, which was really an honor for the art students and the kids from Thailand. So this next slide here shows you what's on the back of each portrait. We have a photo of the child meant to receive the portrait, alongside a photo of the high school student who created it, the name of the high school student, and then a message for the child. Usually the message is handwritten, but in this case, it's printed, and it says, "This portrait was created especially for you. We hope that it will be a fun gift for you to receive and that you will enjoy this keepsake for many years to come." Now, you've seen a lot of amazing portraits, and it really does take some skill to create portraits of that quality. So over years, I had many art teachers asking me, well, my advanced students can make these portraits. What can my novice students do to help? And we came up with this idea that we call inspiration art. So to create inspiration art, we asked the children overseas to choose 3 positive words about themselves that they would like the artist to know. So this girl, Esther, said that she's creative, helpful, and a good reader. So then the student made this gift for Esther to sort of capture those 3 positive qualities. And, this is basically just a simple idea, just something Esther can put on her wall as a source of inspiration to remind herself every day of those positive qualities about herself. The same for Tabumi, creative, playful, and happy. Patrick is intelligent, artistic, creative, and wants to be an engineer. So those are examples of inspiration art, but the vast majority of pieces we receive in the memory project are still portraits. And this photo was really important to me because this represents a turning point in the memory project. This was taken in early 2017 in a Syrian refugee camp on the border of Syria and Jordan. And what's significant about this is that for the dozen years before this photo, we were really focused mainly on children in orphanages or similar children's homes. But in 2016, as you'll remember, there was so many conversations in our country, that had to do with racism and hate and intolerance for people in other cultures. That there were a lot of conversations like that happening at the time, So a lot of our students wanted to respond to that and say, hey, we would like to reach out to youth in a Muslim majority culture and build that bridge of global understanding and friendship, and hopefully humanize each other in our eyes. So we did this with these Syrian children, and this was really a special event for them. They hadn't ever experienced anything like this in the camp. Most of these kids had grown up in the camp since they'd been there for already 5 years, and this just so happens to be in February 2017, which was just shortly after the infamous Muslim ban came into place at the end of January 2017. So that the message that all of these families in the refugee camp had received, well, just a couple weeks before this, was that they were no longer allowed to come to the United States as refugees. They were not welcome in the United States. So it really meant a lot to me that we happened to be there, delivering this art and communicating a totally different kind of message, which is that we see you, we respect you, we care about you, and we're offering this artwork as our way of sharing friendship with you, and we hope you feel that friendship. I really, really have a heart for doing this with girls in Muslim majority countries as well, because for them this is just extra special. They don't often get to experience anything like this. So these are still girls in the Syrian refugee camp, but this next photo, we move over to Afghanistan, which is probably, of all the 57 countries where we've done this, I think I feel most passionately about doing this in Afghanistan. And we did it for the past 4 years. Can't do it anymore because of the Taliban. But it was just amazing to have this opportunity for our students to connect with these Afghan girls, because as Afghanistan is one of the hardest places in the world to be a girl. And you can see they were just so excited. This was just a wild experience for them to know that someone on the other side of the world, had looked at their photo, thought about them, created this gift, and was sending it to them. And here they are, after receiving all their portraits at school, and here they are running home after school to show their families. We actually were able to have an event there with the Minister of Education. So this guy at the podium is the head of education, was the head of education for all of Afghanistan. And he came to deliver the portraits to the girls as a way to celebrate their right to education and to, acknowledge everything that they were doing to achieve an education when, there are so many barriers to that in their country for girls. And you can see they just, really had a wonderful time with this. So, it breaks my heart beyond belief that none of these girls can go to school anymore. But I guess just to end on a positive note, I'll say that I'm just really grateful that we had the opportunity to do this with them. So those were the photos I wanted to share. And I guess I'll just say now that, this is kind of a turning point for the Memory Project, because we lost a lot of participants in the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we had about 35,000 American students involved every school year. And that plummeted down to about 13,000 in the pandemic. Now we're at maybe 15,000. But I'm seeing this as an opportunity for growth. So in just new directions and, new ideas. And I know there are a lot of, great idea people in your club. So I'd like to end with that, just for a call to action. If you have any ideas for collaboration or just thoughts about new directions, to take this concept, or new opportunities for partnership, please don't hesitate to be in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Always happy to hear new ideas. So that is my bit, and I'd love to chat and answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. I really appreciate it, Ben, and it's really nice to hear your story. Before we get to the questions, I wanted to just do a quick intro of the folks on the video with us today. first, as you heard, we have Rushton Hurley, who's based in San Jose, California, and he is our founding president of our club. We have Roy Olson, based in Houston, and we have our paella master, Shags, who is based in Walnut Creek, California. Got myself as well, president-elect for our club, and I am based in Vancouver, British Columbia. And then our first question goes for Rushton.
So actually, a pair. One very quick one. Do you guys also take donations to support your work?
Yes, absolutely. We we get all of our funding through school participation fees. So we ask every school to contribute $10 or $15 per student as a participation fee that covers everything. That said, we never turn away any schools. So we have a lot of schools that can't afford those participation fees. And we love to use donations to basically sponsor those schools. So yes, that'd be great.
Cool. Additionally, I'm curious about a shift that happened in the Memory Project. So you're organizing these things from here in the United States, and then at some point, it begins to shift where it's as much about connecting students in different places as it is doing something kind for kids in orphanages, right? As you described. At about that point, did you begin traveling? And if so, how did that change how you see the work you do?
Oh yes, great question. Well, I would admit that when I started this project, I had a little bit more of a top-down mentality of, thinking that other high school students in the US come from a relatively privileged background. And here we're doing this project with kids who are, relatively less privileged than we are. So we are doing something kind for them. And that's the end of it. And after traveling, and meeting so many kids, photographing them, bringing artwork, I really let go of that top-down mentality. And it really became more equal to me that, sure, our students are the ones that are creating the artwork because they are in art classes, but this is mutually beneficial. Everybody is gaining from this because, when we deliver the portraits, we make a video of it. And then the kids who receive the portraits have an opportunity to, well, first of all, say anything they want to, but second, share anything from their culture or perform in any way that they might like. A lot of kids will enjoy, doing a dance or singing a song that we record in video and share it with our students. So, yeah, absolutely. I think traveling and just growing. I started this when I was 23 or 22, I guess. And so I still had some growing to do, and I did realize that we're a lot more alike than I knew before.
Cool, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, and I have another question from the group, which is, have particular organizations proved to be especially strong partners for you? Like, do you like, first, I guess, what organizations do you partner with besides just the schools individually? And then which ones are your best partners?
So, stateside, we have these partnerships with schools individually, independently. Every art teacher, I just spend my day emailing with art teachers basically and sending them photos. But to get the photos of the children, we need to have good partnerships with international children's charities. And we've partnered with organizations that are not even yet an organization. It's basically just a person who who is doing something with kids in their area, and it's very undefined and just informal. And they go to schools in their area and they photograph kids and they send them to me. We partnered with individual people like that up to the biggest children's charity in the world, UNICEF. And in fact, the Syrian children that I showed, that was thanks to a UNICEF partnership because that was the only way that we could get access to that refugee camp. Same thing in Bangladesh for Rohingya refugee children. We had a UNICEF partnership there. And every, organizations everywhere in between. And interestingly, I'd say that uh, the size of the organization has not proven to be a very relevant factor for me in the quality of the partnership. It's way more about, the point person that I have, that is, I'd rather, communicate with someone at a very small organization who's really dedicated to doing this with me than someone at a huge organization who, has a million other things to do. And this is just one of many things. So yeah, we've seen it all.
And for me, one of the questions I had was, I guess, is that how do you get that initial connection? Because I was picturing, like, especially you mentioned your kids in the beginning, and the idea of, like, are you going to every place that you've gotten these photos? Obviously, the answer is no, because you've got these partners. But how do you find the partner in the first place? How do you find that one person who's
Yeah.
like found you? Do they find you? Do you go seek them?
Well, and that too can be anything under the sun. It could be some kind of word of mouth connection where someone actually in Danville near I
Yeah.
believe that's near Walnut Creek, gentleman there who's really involved in the memory project. He read about this organization with a headquarters in the Bay Area that works in the Philippines, and he just read a newspaper article about them and said, "Hey, you should contact them." And I did, and we did the project with them. So it can be a suggestion. Sometimes when there's a global event that I really want to focus on, like the Syrian refugee situation or the Rohingya refugee situation, I will try to, just reach out in any way I can until I get someone who wants to do the project with me. So in the case of that refugee camp on the Syrian border, I first emailed the US Embassy in Jordan and I said, can you please tell me how I can connect to any of these charities that are working in that refugee camp? And I was very surprised when they wrote back and said, oh, yes, we'll refer you to our partners at UNICEF and they can take this forward with you. And, and now that said, I've sent a lot of emails that have gone unanswered. You can imagine. So.
Yeah. No, well, and it makes me think about the other side too, because you mentioned with COVID going from like 35,000 schools or students to 15,000 now. Um, how do you, how did you, I guess, can the way you got to 35,000 get you back further along to a larger number?
I think so. It'll remain to be seen. The memory project grew about like 10 to 15% each year in terms of the number of students participating from 2004 through 2019. And so that's how we marched up from just like 500 to 3,000 to 35,000. So what will remain to be seen is now that we're back to like 15,000, will we continue to just grow at that amount? Or if, things are hard right now for teachers. So many schools are under strain with staffing shortages, with, financial issues. So I don't know if in this new world, we're just trying to hover around here or if there will be a more rapid bounce back. I have no idea, which makes it very difficult to plan how many partners in other countries to approach and how many children in other countries to photograph. Because I have to, this is the start of the school year, I have to guess at how many students we will have involved this year, which I used to be able to estimate fairly accurately based on past data about that 10 to 15% growth. And now it's just a guess, and trying to just adapt as month to month.
Do you at this point have photos that you haven't been able to get done? Like, or is it which side is it? Because obviously you're not soliciting photos from your partners unless unless you have the painters to paint them, I guess, right?
Right. So last school year was the first time ever that I had, essentially coordinated photographs of kids that we were not able to finish. And I think that was because of the Omicron surge in January and February, leading to so many school staffing shortages fewer teachers signed up. I had pretty good signups in the fall of last school year, and then in the spring it sort of stopped, and we weren't able to make portraits for all these kids in Madagascar who had been photographed. So then we had to just, we ended up like printing all of their photos, large size, and sending them there, and then sending a financial donation to, do something fun at their school. So it was okay, but yeah, sometimes I can roll it forward. If we can't get it done in the spring semester, we can do it first thing at the start of the fall semester. But it is definitely a juggling act.
Roshan, I think you might have one more question.
Yeah. So Ben, I love the project, by the way. I mean, just so many cool things that you guys have got going. One question, it has to do with where your painters are and where the kids being painted are as well, right? So, as we've described it, sounds like the painters are all in the United States and the kids who are being painted are all outside the United States. Is that wrong? Are there kids from other countries who are painting? Are there kids within the United States who serve as the kids who get painted? Is that a part of how the program works as well?
Yeah, going back to what I mentioned earlier about trying to make this, more equal than top down. I did have an interest in making this more like a spider web around the world, rather than just like a hub of the United States that artwork goes out from. So we do have a lot of schools in other countries that create artwork. For the most part, they are like private, English language schools. I think in about 20 to 25 countries, we have schools that create artwork. And we have done portraits for children in the United States in some really challenged school districts. So, it was a great experience. The kids loved it. That it was great. But the biggest challenge logistically, which we don't face in other countries in regards to photographing the children, is that here we needed to get signed permission forms from every single parent in order to let their child be photographed for the project. And what that meant in these school districts was, you send these papers home with the kids and the backpacks and they get lost. And so only about half the kids in the school brought back these signed permission forms. So we delivered the portraits, and only half the kids got them. And the other half of the kids were like, why didn't I get one? So it was sort of a mess logistically, but they did love it. And, that was a case where there were definitely international schools, there were students in China or, you name it, India, Germany, who had made portraits for kids in the United States. And I love that. I love, mixing it up all over the world.
Awesome. That's super interesting. And I really appreciate you coming back after 6 years to speak with us again. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching today, who's enjoyed this program, to let us know what you think. We have a discuss section below. It's a tool that allows us to share and then we respond to comments. So please take a moment to add to the conversation. Really appreciate that. And then members and Rotarian guests, make sure that you fill out the attendance section too. It helps us know about the reach of our efforts and allows us to serve for other Rotarians to serve as a makeup for a missed meeting. If you put your email address properly below, you'll get a message that you can pass along to your club secretary. As always, I'd like to give the final word to our speaker, Ben.
Well, thank you again so much for having me. And please do get in touch if you have any ideas for collaboration, whether it be, wanting to get your kids' school involved in creating artwork, or if you know some children's charities somewhere in the world that you'd like to involve in receiving artwork, that would be great. And I wish all of you the best, and thanks again.
Thank you.